We started the North Central Washington Forest Health Collaborative in 2012, in which we had 8 member organizations really come together and help develop the idea and the concept behind the collaborative. We all agreed that it'd be about forest health resiliency, and it would be about bringing as many organizations together to help create resources and resource sharing. We are increasing the pace and scale. That is our goal, to increase pace and scale of forest restoration.
In Washington State, we have a lot of different land management agencies managing our forest land, and it makes it really complicated to implement restoration projects at a landscape level, which is really the direction that we need to be going into. And so what we're working on is increasing the coordination and collaboration between different land management agencies in order to get these projects completed with the pace and scale that we need to ensure that our forests will remain healthy.
In 2015, we had the worst fire season in the history in Washington State, particularly eastern Washington. We had over 1 million acres burned in forests and shrub steppe. It was devastating to many homes, structures were lost, and unfortunately, there were lives lost. There was so much pressure on the Forest Service and other land management agencies. What are we going to do about this? In the fall of 2015, there was a forum that came together, and that forum was called Wildfires and Us. And we had over 400 citizens from Chelan County and beyond come to that forum, and we had the Public Lands Commissioner, the Forest Supervisor, and others that were all there speaking and listening. And what we heard loud and clear was, what can the Forest Service do to be more proactive to reduce these fuels and try to get these uncharacteristic wildfires under control? And the Lands Commissioner, Public Lands Commissioner, brought this to the North Central Washington Forest Health Collaborative because we were already working on these kind of projects, and asked, is there a special pilot project we could take on? And we said, you know, there is a project we've been thinking about, and it is up the upper Wenatchee landscape, and it was Lower Chihuahua and Big Meadow. That was about 30,000 acres, those 2 watersheds. And we said, okay, what if we did another 2 watersheds in addition to those 2, which would be Beaver Creek, Wenatchee River, and Lake Wenatchee watersheds. That would be 75,000 acres. That is the largest scale that the forest had ever been to. So the next question was, can we as a collaborative partnership help bring funds to pay for this large landscape scale restoration? We went out, and after a year, a little bit more than a year, we ended up with $2.16 million. And that funding is helping to pay for this project. But in addition to the landscape on the Forest Service, those funds also help pay for treks, prescribed fire training, fuel reductions on Chelan County land, Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife land, helped to develop the Lake Wenatchee Fire Adaptive Community, and 11,000 acres of prescribed burning on Forest Service land. So with all of that, we moved forward. We were able to contract a NEPA team.
For the first time, the Forest Service is contracting out a very large NEPA project like this, and we're able to help them, fill those contracts and get that work done at a faster pace and scale than had we relied on the existing resources at the local Forest Service offices. So we're all working together on it, and in so doing, we're doing a much bigger project much faster on a large piece of real estate in Chelan County.
There's some really good community outcomes that will come from this. It's going to protect the communities, it's going to protect the landowners particularly, and it's going to provide many jobs. And that is another part of the goal of this large landscape project.
The Upper Wenatchee Pilot Project is a collaborative forest restoration project. We've worked with many collaborative partners in developing this project. This project is also a condition-based approach to forest management. We look at and have assessed numerous different forest conditions and a suite of tools to help us get those conditions to a more desirable objective. We've looked at different types of commercial thinning, non-commercial thinning, prescribed fire. This project also has a large aquatic restoration component of this that addresses road impacts to streams and riparian areas. It addresses aquatic passage and conditions to help with endangered species within the project area. The project itself will be implemented over many years, so it's not something that you'll see project work all at once, but over time.
So this planting area, which covers in total about 75,000 acres, it's a very diverse landscape with lots of complexities and issues. We can only complete this work successfully in collaborating with local publics and other stakeholders and partners and cooperators. It's just real important that the North Central Washington Forest Health Collaborative has really been instrumental in helping us yard all the stakeholders up and giving us that vision and that focus that encompasses the needs of all those involved.
Needing to work across boundaries and ownerships, it's a big part of the equation.
One of the tools we can use is called the Good Neighbor Authority, which basically allows the state to help implement projects on federal land.
I think one of the exciting things about this project for me is that there's been landowners and community members that have been at the table from the start. There's been community groups like the Lake Wenatchee Fire Adapted Community Group, the local fire district, the Chumstick Wildfire Coalition.
Trying to mesh the human needs with the ecological needs is something that we're trying to do in this project. Our local fire district partners are working very closely with us. It's something that we take very seriously.
We know that healthy forests and healthy communities pretty much go hand in hand. How the forest goes, we go. Money from the Upper Wenatchee Pilot Project helps sponsor a number of programs through that, which has allowed us to do home assessments for private property and private property owners within the community. We have a seasonal chipper and a crew that goes around and mitigates yard waste for residential properties. And we've been able to start a Fire Adapted Communities program where community members work to make their homes safer and the community more resilient to fire.
I've been the FireWise leader here for 5 years, and of those 5 years, 3 years in a row, we've had what we call a community cleanup. I think that people are beginning to see how important it is that the property around us is treated, if you will, or managed, if you will. But I also think that it's coming into the forefront for people that they need to do something themselves. From when you first came here and did our risk assessment, if you go through and look now, I think you'll see quite a bit of improvement. And I'm happy to report that.
Over the last couple of years, we've seen improvements through this program of homeowners getting on board and preparing their properties and cleaning them up. This year was better than last year, and next year will be better than this year has been. We're hoping that that continues to become part of the lifestyle and part of the culture here at Lake Wenatchee.
So this is an example of a dry forest, multi-storied, multi-layered forest condition. So we have ponderosa pine, we've got grand fir, we've got these shade-tolerant species that have come up in the understory. And so with this project, we're designing our treatments to come in from below and remove these shade-tolerant species and really, promote the protection of these large legacy trees that are so important to this landscape. So this is an example of where we would have commercial harvest. The byproduct of that would be this smaller diameter grand fir.
2.7 million acres need to be restored in eastern Washington. That's a huge number. So the challenge is, how do we pay for it, and how does a collaborative help bring resources and funding? So we realize that there's also the wood supply that comes out of a project that can actually utilize the revenue from the commercial timber value that can turn around and pay for the ecologically sound restoration. We have full support from Nature Conservancy, and we ask other conservation organizations to be supportive of this really important work.
By thinning from below, taking the small diameter trees, we're going to reduce the fuel load, and that will dramatically reduce the risk of a catastrophic wildfire. The small diameter trees that we are thinning not only will pay for stewardship type projects, but it has value in the market.
Then in the end, we're expecting to have a pretty open understory, which is much more resilient should wildfire come through this landscape. The ladder fuels won't be there, and it won't provide those ladders to climb into those upper canopies to impact those larger tree components that we desire.
The connecting, protecting, and restoration work really needs to go hand in hand and has to be part of a larger collaborative process to really endure it. And so our goal is to really help the Forest Service work with communities, work in a collaborative fashion, and really look at the broader landscape. Key concerns are late soil reserve habitat, older forests with really a lot of diversity, both for certain endangered species like spotted owls, and also recovering species like the fisher that prefer old growth habitat. And so any treatment within these really special places needs to be done cautiously. There was a work group formed within the collaborative to work with the district to really talk through some of those concerns, to look at the range of treatments and what the landscape really needed, not just an individual stand.
The Northwest Forest Plan guides us to manage this to protect like successional habitat and spotted owls. So this project, we're trying to balance protecting those owls with treating the landscape to make it more resilient to primarily wildfire. While we do that, we have prioritized habitat across the area, and we're going to stay out of areas that are the highest priority. So those areas that have been used by owls recently will get either light or no treatment. So in order to map higher quality habitat, allow us to protect the most valuable habitat as well as identify the less desirable habitat to treat.
One of the primary objectives of the collaborative and the aquatic work group was to build a robust aquatic habitat assessment and integrate Forest Service processes with local and state salmon recovery and watershed plans. In order to do that, the collaborative was able to leverage resources to hire an independent firm, Kramer Fish Sciences, to conduct an aquatic assessment. They walked many miles of stream throughout the project area, collected data, and identified specific restoration opportunities. The report they put together really helped build many of the projects that you're going to find in the environmental assessment.
So through the initial stream surveys that were completed in the project area, we found that about half of the stream reaches had inadequate large wood, not enough deep, cool pools, and some sort of riparian disturbance, which basically means that the fish habitat isn't where we want it to be. There's a lot of opportunity for restoration. So all of that data will help inform our future restoration actions. One of the other things we found through our surveys is that one of the big problem areas is culverts, stream crossings. A lot of times culverts are undersized and they are fish passage barriers, either complete or partial barriers depending on the time of year or the size of the fish. With our culvert replacements, we frequently upgrade to what are called aquatic organism passage structures. These are culverts that have a natural stream bottom and allow fish and other aquatic organisms to pass at all times of year, regardless of size. This opens up miles of habitat. In fact, we've found that in this project area, we're going to open up about 10 miles of known fish habitat to year-round passage and up to 20 miles of potential fish habitat. These are stream sections that may have suitable fish habitat and the potential to have populations but we've never seen before, potentially because culverts have blocked fish's ability to use those stream reaches. Since we know that there is a deficiency of large wood in a lot of our stream sections, we will be working with partners and other organizations to develop strategies to place wood structures into streams. We'll also be working to improve side channel and off channel habitat, very important for different types of salmonid species. And all of that will be based on the current data that we have in the area and also anything we find out in the field when we're doing work. So in this planning area, we have 3 ESA listed fish species: spring chinook, steelhead, and bull trout. Those are our primary species of concern, but we also have other native fish species that we are also working to restore the populations and ensure that we have healthy populations into the future.
One of the things we looked at in this project was our transportation network. It's important to us that we analyze the transportation network and make sure that we have a sustainable system that we can maintain through time without creating resource damages. There are over 380 miles of roads within the project area. Through the transportation analysis process, we identified over 65 miles of road that we can decommission that are no longer needed or are causing resource damage. We identified another 50 miles of road that we would like to maintain for storage for longer term use but are not needed right now. We surveyed most of the roads in the project area prior to starting the NEPA process. We found about 30 sites that have severe erosion or damage to them and are contributing sediment directly to streams or the drainage ditches in the drainage network. So one of the things we can do when we find high severity damage areas of a road is we can reconstruct the road to prevent it from contributing sediment directly to streams and drainage ways. In minor cases, what we need to do is just work on the drainage of the road system so that we route sediment and water off of the road into vegetated forested areas that can act as a filter and prevent that sediment from reaching streams and impacting fish habitat.
So here in north central Washington, as well as across the Pacific Northwest and across the West for that matter, we see a large need for restoration projects such as this. We've been pretty good at suppressing fires in the past and not really recognizing the value of letting fire play a natural role on the landscape. Lots of past management practices didn't look at the big picture, and they were kind of focused on a smaller geographical area without regard for the adjacent landscape. So with this project, we intend to kind of take that bigger picture look, yard up all the issues that exist, our road network, our past treatments, exclusion of fire, looking at forest health, wildlife habitats, their connectivity or lack thereof, and try and take a holistic view in conjunction with the community protection and the hazardous fuels reduction, and kind of turn the ecological tables on the trends that we see. We're hoping that this is a model for future collaboration with the public, with our cooperators, other stakeholders, our partners. It's a pilot in many ways.